Welcome to the Leadership Pulse, where we talk about all things healthcare culture, burnout, leadership, and I'm your co-host, Jessica Zampetri.
And I'm Becky Wolf, also one of the co-hosts. And with us, we have Brady Steineck. Brady is a repeat guest. If you haven't listened to his first episode, which is episode 3 of the podcast, go back and listen to that. You'll hear more of his bio, hear his passion around culture and investing in people. And so far, it is our most listened to podcast. So highly recommend you go back and listen to that. After the show, Brady and we actually had so much great conversation with Brady. So we wanted to invite him back to talk about some things that he's super passionate about. Brady, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me back. Really appreciate it. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to dive in after the show last time. We were talking about value-based healthcare and in a primary care setting, and just a lot of conversation that came out of that. So I'd love for you to touch in, just dive in right away, right out the gate, and just start talking about value-based healthcare and how that has maybe shifted mindset into your healthcare world, or what that's looked like in your practice.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll just start by being really broad in general. What is value-based care? Really, when you look at United States healthcare over the last 20, 30 years, the main way of paying for it and the way it's been organized is in something what's called a fee-for-service model. And I try to come up with as many analogies for it as I can. The most recent one was kind of like an assembly line. Have you ever seen that really classic old I Love Lucy episode? Yes. Where her and Ethel are on assembly line and there's chocolates coming through, and the chocolates are coming through faster than they can handle them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the boss says, if you don't handle all these chocolates and wrap them, then you lose your job. And they come fast, and it's hilarious because she's shoving them in her shirt and in her hat, and they're eating a bunch, and there's a bunch that they throw on the floor. And I kind of was thinking about it, and I'm like, even though that's really funny, like that's kind of been what healthcare is. Doctors have been paid to do office visits with no consideration for what happens in that visit. And so the care doesn't have to be high quality. The only way for doctors and for healthcare systems to create a profit enough to stay in business is to see more patients. But especially in my world in primary care, trying to shove more patients into less time is completely adverse to what I'm trying to do, which is to take good care of people. And so this system of rewarding us for more volume, but not for quality, I think has just been a horrible disservice to our country. And the data shows it, right? We're the richest country in the world, and we have the 30th or 40th best outcomes. We have horrible infant mortality. We have bad chronic care management. Of course, our cost is like 6, 8, 10x what other first world countries are. It's horrific. And so really, when you look at how to transform this, the word value has been really the catchphrase that comes to the surface. And I've kind of equated value to saying, what is value? And the easiest way is in a very simple math problem, which is quality over cost. So if you increase the quality and lower the cost, you've created something more valuable, right? Even if it's an item on the shelf at Target, higher quality and lower cost means you got a good value. Same with healthcare. If we can increase the quality and lower the cost, we're going to create better value for the money that this country spends on our healthcare. And what's great about it is that the payment model is changing. We're seeing less and less of that fee-for-service chocolate factory model. And when you look at where we're going, and to be quite honest, kind of on the front line of it here at Community Healthcare is we're looking at it. The other analogy I thought about was that of a shepherd. So if you think of a shepherd with a big flock of sheep, is that guy trying to do 1,500 chocolates an hour? No. He's compensated for how many of those sheep he keeps healthy, how many of them that he can invest in to grow, how many of them he can individualize the care for so that they are their best selves. And that's what we're evolving to, increasing the quality, lowering the cost. at community healthcare, we've evolved into almost a fully capitated model. So that's completely opposite of fee-for-service. Our doctors are paid, at least in our Medicare population, a certain amount of dollars per patient in their panel per month up front. So now the doctor is not being compensated for doing chocolates. We're not paid to see 30 visits a day and do inadequate care. If we see less patients that day, but we're able to do what's right for them, keep them in their homes, manage their chronic conditions, keep them out of the emergency room unnecessarily, avoid hospitalization if appropriate, we're increasing the quality and lowering the cost. That at the end of the day is what we really should be being compensated for. And so this is really taking healthcare to the next level, and it's catching fire nationally. We are not the only value-based care provider, even in our market here in Northeast Ohio anymore. There's a national movement. Even CMS, Medicare is moving toward capitated payments to physicians, bundled payments, mandating that we take less on the front side for fee-for-service and more on the back end for quality. So I think that there's only good that can come from that as we go forward. So really long-winded answer, but that is what value-based care is in a nutshell.
Just a large nutshell.
Yeah, it's huge.
Now, what were your difficulties getting community healthcare within the value-based platform and all of that?
Well, for us, the story is unique because we were very fortunate and blessed to have a founder who wanted to do this and created the mission statement of the company to do this before it was cool. He founded the company in the mid-'80s, in the middle of a lot of the transition to this fee-for-service era that we've been in. And our mission statement is kind of like the value-based manifesto. So over the years, we've made a lot of decisions and initiatives within our company that in a fee-for-service model looked really dumb from the outside because it wasn't to maximize that fee-for-service model. It was to do what was right for the patient and to take care of our communities. And so that's kind of like managing the population and doing value-based population health. With that, we weren't even being incentivized or paid to do it, but it was the right thing to do. And so for me as the second leader to step into his succession, it's crazy because we're just continuing and trying to further our mission and our culture. And now the rest of medicine has caught up to actually kind of incentivize us and reimburse us for doing that. And so that's why it's really exciting. It's a really exciting time for community healthcare because we've been able to kind of really enhance what we already do, and we're actually being compensated for it now. So it's putting us in a position to be successful. That being said, it's not easy. It's still not easy. Still all of our docs were trained in a system where it was beat into us to see more patients every day. And you weren't going to get paid unless you brought a patient into the office. For reasons that they probably didn't need to be brought in. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I've got kids to feed, I've got college to pay for. That's what your docs are thinking. And so it's been really a huge culture shift, even in our culture, to get our docs to think differently. And we talk about it every month in our meetings. What does it look like to do what was right for the patient in the right time and place, not irrespective of how we're getting paid for it? Because again, remember, we're getting paid on the first of the month. So we already got paid to take care of this patient. That's what's really cool is the payment model is incentivizing us to do the right thing. If I can take care of this patient on a phone call, on a video visit, or with like we talked about in my last podcast, the highly functioning team that we've put in that's got nurse practitioners and RNs and behavioral health, if we're able to utilize this team, then we're doing a better service for our patients. We've already been compensated for it. And it's a better use of our resources because then we're opening up office time and office space. Limited, finite resources are open now for people that really needed to be seen in the office, for people that are really sick that we're trying to keep out of the hospital. So it's a huge culture shift for your docs. It's a huge way of thinking differently, even in a model like ours where we've always been that way. Again, until the payment model changed to incentivize it and reimburse for it and compensate for it, you really don't. You kind of have one foot in one side and one foot in the other. And so we've kind of taken that foot out of fee for service and jumped in, cannonballed into the capitated pool. And so you're right. It's a soft leadership type thing. It's not, yes, we have processes around it, but it's also getting our docs and our providers to think differently. And that's a heavy lift. We talk about it ad nauseum every month.
Yeah. Subconscious and conscious just training that they've had.
Like habits, right? Like the habit.
So many habits, autopiloted habits.
Exactly. And it's getting people in the middle of the heat of the day when they're stressed, when they're running behind, when there's 3 patients in the waiting room to say, okay, wait a minute. I don't need to do this the way I already and always did it. So.
Yeah, it's like retraining. Like you said, it's like just the habits that they're so used to. It's ingrained in them. Now, I have a question about insurance in this case, because I know that's, for fee for service, it's different per insurance, how much you're getting paid. So can you speak to that a little bit, how it's different with value-based care?
Yeah, so it really it changes the relationship between providers and payers. When in a fee for service model, when I'd sit down with an insurance company to do our contracts, or my predecessor would, it felt like it was always fighting over pennies. It was always, okay, we need this much more money for a level 3 visit or a level 4 visit or for preventative care. And it was always just fighting. In value-based care, it's a lot more collaborative. We are at what's called full risk across our Medicare line of business, which means that all of the dollars that Medicare allocates to our patients are actually given to us through a partnership through a company we have with a company called Agilon. And so it's no longer fighting for pennies. It's helping each other have the data we need to be able to utilize those resources to the fullest for the patient, which has been really refreshing. The insurance companies sit down with data. They tell us, hey, Brady, community healthcare has 55 female patients that we think need to have a mammogram that we don't think have had one. So here's their names. And then we have built a structure where my people go find those names, and we can look at those patients and call them and say, hey, mammograms are really important to prevent breast cancer deaths. And can we get you scheduled for one? It's giving us cost data and saying, hey, you guys are doing great at keeping your patients out of the ER, but maybe you've had more people in the hospital this year. Here's the names of all the patients that have had multiple hospital readmissions. Maybe you can reach out to them with your teams. So it's been extremely more collaborative, which I think is wonderful because we're not sitting there fighting. We're actually collaborating on what's best. I call it a triple win. In this model, the insurance company still is able to function and make the profit that they need to continue to be in business. We are given the resources we need to take care of the patients, and the patients get better care. It's I love those triple wins. You don't see that in business or in healthcare a lot, and that's what we're moving to. So that's really refreshing.
Now, in your opinion, because some would say that trying to do value-based care in a surgical specialty versus primary care is harder on their end. And then I've heard it the other way, where primary care is harder because you're managing all of these chronic diseases that US has quite a few of them. In your opinion, where does that fall?
I think it's apples and oranges based on what you said, because the primary care doc is now being given responsibility over the entire continuity of care across the whole healthcare spectrum. So the issue with that is I have to be, as a primary care doctor that's being paid to manage my entire flock, right? If I'm the shepherd, then I need to know what's happening to my sheep when they're not in my flock. And if they're going to a place that's going to do a lot of unnecessary care, a lot of extra cost, a lot of unnecessary testing, a lot of things that maybe the patient doesn't want or need, I need to know that because that's going to come back to me. And so it's about having collaborative conversations with all of your colleagues in the area, which in fact, the other practice that's with Agilon in our market, and I have been having very collaborative conversations with specialists because they're a total fee for service world, right? They aren't always compensated for quality. They're just the best that they can do is to see more patients. So it can be a tug of war. You're totally right in that aspect. But I think the specialists kind of their eyes light up when we tell them, look, like we only want to send you people you really need to see. We want to have great collaboration and communication with you. It gets back to why you went to med school, to do great care. And so we do get a lot of buy-in from our colleagues that are specialists to try to help us. And we tell them, look, I can't tell you how to do surgery or cardiology or nephrology or hematology. I'm a primary care doctor, but so I need you to do what you're good at doing. I just need you to be collaborative with me and doing what's best for patients. And we usually get a pretty good response from that.
Usually. So there's been some not so good responses. How
Well, yeah,
do those go?
had one yesterday where and I can almost script it for you. When a doctor that's really embedded in fee for service is presented with changing the model of care to value, there's several things that they say that doesn't apply to me because my practice or my specialty is different. It doesn't fit into that mold. Here's the big one: your data is faulty. They always attack your data. And my docs do that. I do. If you see your name at the bottom of a list, oh, that must be wrong. I'm a better doctor. The system is against us to do this. That's a big one that we get. I've always done it this way, which I hate. Like, well, what we've always done really doesn't work, buddy. So in all of our docs, you can walk through community healthcare and they can laugh because sometime in the 2010 decade when we were really starting to attack this, all of us probably said those same things.
Yeah.
So we hear that a lot. And it's just basically comes down to, look, man, like this is here whether we like it or not. And you're going to have to adapt or die. And we always joke, though, that when you see your name on a bad list of quality outcomes, it's the 5 stages of grief, right? You get angry, you deny it, you bargain with it, until you finally come to acceptance.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all do.
And I love that you highlighted that, though, because I think just in medical culture in general, we've always done it this way mentality that kind of keeps us in our old ways. And even just the training of fee for service, that's a great example of that as well. I wanted to ask you too, with your partnership with Agilon, that's something I think you highlighted in the last episode as well as like a partnership over the last year. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, and this is the part that's interesting nationally. So Agilon is a public company. They were private when we originally partnered with them. They went public in the spring of 2021 on Wall Street. It's a very interesting company because it was founded by a guy whose mother got cancer at a very young age. And as a teenager, he watched her bounce through this fee-for-service system. And of course, it was extremely impactful on him. Unfortunately, she passed away. And he came up through the finance world, ended up in venture capital and on Wall Street, and had a special interest in healthcare. And started to really delve into a lot of different models, went out to California and visited with Kaiser and some of these other value-based care and capitated arrangements and figured out look, we need to do this differently. And there are multiple that's the thing. There's venture capital, there's huge companies very interested in this value-based care transformation that this country is undergoing. And it used to be only, with venture capital and Wall Street firms just picking up specialists because maybe they were a lot more financially lucrative. But now there's a huge interest in primary care. And Agilon Health started out as a company that wanted to support primary care doctors in transitioning to value and taking great care of their patients. And it's in the Medicare space that they live. And basically what it is that again, as I mentioned before, the contracts that Agilon is able to negotiate, all of the resource dollars allocated to a doctor's patients are given to the Agilon partnership with that doctor. And if we are able to manage the patient well, take care of their chronic conditions, keep them out of the hospital unnecessarily, and save, again, high value with low cost, save money for the patient's care, us and Agilon are able to share in that cost savings. Mm-hmm. And so what it does is that it enables us to have resources to invest in more care. We have, again, a very highly intensive, highly functioning team that's really a lot larger and more highly involved than we could ever have afforded to do before because of those resources. And so it's kind of putting what you do on steroids. And Agilon's grown exponentially. There's an asymptotic curve that they're following just since 2017 when they were founded. Up to about 500,000 seniors in our country now are their primary care doctor is with Agilon, and again, what Agilon is also interesting about and unique is that they do not buy physician practices. They don't own 1 ounce of community healthcare. They're just partners. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing that separates them. There's multiple other large venture capital groups and even Amazon, if you look at the news, just buying primary care. And that's a lot more capital intensive, obviously, if you're owning doctors. But with Agilon's model of partnership, it's a lot less capital intensive for them. So they're able to be nimble and grow faster. And so, again, there's a lot of models, a lot of different companies are trying to take different angles on what this looks like. That's the model that we've chosen. We like our independence. We're fiercely independent. We think that that's one of our big strengths so that we can continue to kind of control our own destiny and able to be nimble and change things. There's not, we don't answer to 37 attorneys and 16 different bosses over us. We're small, we're nimble. If we think something makes sense to do for our patients or for our business, we can do it. And so staying independent was huge for us, and Agilon allows us to do that while also giving us resources to provide better care. And so for us, that was the way we went. Many other people are go ahead and in the other model where they're being purchased or acquired. It's just everybody's doing something different.
Control your own destiny. Tell me a little bit more.
Well, I think Becky's statement of doing things how we've always done it is extremely embedded in healthcare. I'm sure you guys have talked about that a lot and with your other guests on this podcast. And we cannot survive at all by clinging to those old ways. And the bigger, in my experience, the bigger you are and the larger your healthcare system is, the slower you are to change. Mm-hmm. And we want to be the opposite of that. So at community healthcare, we're small, we're nimble, we pride ourselves on that. We have a homegrown management force that has been raised in our culture of, hey, when we decide to do something, we're going to go do it. Mm-hmm. And no one can tell us no except ourselves. And so, as long as we're staying true to our mission of doing things that are better for patient care, I think we're going to be okay. And so for us, it's about having the freedom and the ability and the independence to do those things.
Yeah. So with your partnership with Agilon, how much involvement do they have then? I know just talking with other healthcare providers, that's a concern with private equity companies, is how much involvement they actually have in the leadership decisions.
Right. And because they're partners, they really cannot force us or tell us to do anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about it is it's a collaboration. Mm-hmm. It's a partnership. So we come up with initiatives and decisions together. There's no dictator. I'm not telling them what to do. They're not telling me what to do. We do things together. And because they're partners with us, they're intensely interested in helping us take better care of our patients. We're all incentivized to do that based on the contract model. And the thing is, we also have a long-term contract with them because they want to build long-term collaborative, healthy relationships with their partners. And so, is it perfect? No, there's times where we disagree. And I think that's good because the times that we have had disagreements has been really great opportunities for us to come to new understandings or come up with even better ideas than we had before. So those healthy kind of discussions of, hey, I think it should be done this way, I think we should do this, have been really fruitful. They've been, extremely collaborative and professional. Again, it's been a good thing, and the amount of time we've invested in that relationship is starting to bear fruit, and I think they'd say so as well. But that's what's nice. There's another large group in our area who did do the acquisition model where they were bought out by an extremely large national company, and to be quite honest, some of their docs are now coming to us to say, look, they're telling me what to do and I don't like it. And I kind of like your model of being independent. And so, we're seeing that potentially this partnership model is probably a little bit better way to go.
Yeah. And through our last podcast and this podcast, it's clear that you guys have really honed in on your mission and vision and aligned everything there and owning your own destiny. So if you had it all your way as CEO of community healthcare, what does that future look like?
I've gotten in trouble before trying to predict things. None of us can. None of us can ever. None of us know the future. But what I can really foresee happening is the growth of community healthcare, but in a way that it would be really easy for us with our resources and with how scalable our model is to just grow at a exponential clip, just like Agilon is. The problem with that is, and I think you guys, this is the point of your podcast, is culture. Like, how do you retain your soul if you grow too fast? We kind of feel like the special secret sauce for us is our culture, and in training our people to know that mission of doing what's right and loving the person across from you, not worrying about everything else. And we're always fighting to maintain that and to keep that. And we're always fighting for us to, it's so easy to just go off and make other decisions for other reasons. And so when we acquire a new doctor or when we hire a new physician or acquire a practice, we want them to become part of community healthcare. We don't want community healthcare to kind of be watered down into all these subcultures of people that we've acquired. And so, yeah, could it be easy for us to grow at an exponential pace just for the sake of growth? Great. Yeah, it could. But that's not what we're interested in doing. We really feel like to change healthcare in our market, we need to retain our culture. So we're going to grow very strategically and intentionally with physicians and providers and communities that get what we're doing and want to be part of it. So I can't really predict. A lot of times it's people coming to us saying, we see what we're doing and we want to be a part of it. And in that case, the answer is, okay, sure, let's talk about that. So I can't really, our business model and our acquisition model has never been, okay, I want that practice in that town. We're going to do this in 2024. We're going to go here in 25. We really want to stay away from that because, again, those places or the things that we're looking at may not end up being part of our culture and our mission and vision, and then that gets us in trouble. And so I definitely see growth in a big scale, just in a big picture kind of way. I think community healthcare will be bigger, taking care of more communities. I can't tell you which ones those are or exactly how big we'll be because, again, I don't want to pigeonhole us into something that might compromise our culture or our mission.
Yeah. Yeah. So that organic growth seems really important to maintain the culture that you've built. You worked really hard on building. That's amazing.
Yeah. We can't lose that. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to take like a little bit of a pivot here because you're CEO of the company, you're still practicing, and you own a Della Medical Spa in Canton. The question can come up sometimes is how do you do all of that without feeling burnout?
Burnout, I think, comes from, I don't know. I do a lot. I have a very busy schedule. I have 5 children. I practice 3 days a week in my office in Louisville. I have the administrative role that I have as CEO. The spa thing has been really a cool opportunity on the side. My wife runs that mostly. But I do go there and treat patients, and it's fun. It's refreshing. It's a totally different angle than primary care. It's been really fun to do. We've trained a lot of other providers to do stuff with us at the spa, so it's not just me. It's a lot less overwhelming that way. For me, I'm not burned out because I just love what I do. I get to get up every day and and go at it and go for it. And, I've really worked on my personal health. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, it's always evolving. There have been times, and my team and my wife will tell you, that I have been heavy and in a burnout type situation. And I think that happens to all of us. And you have to pull yourself out of that and say, okay, what do I need for myself that I'm not doing right now? Mm-hmm. And, it's my responsibility to be the best person, the best Brady I can be for others. I have a responsibility to the Lord, to my family, and to the company to be the best that I can be. And if I'm not doing that, then that to me is a moral failure that that's not an option. And so, I'm really blessed to have an amazingly high functioning team around me. I can say that this is what I do on a daily basis is not because of me at all. I have a huge support of extremely awesome people in every area of my life that, again, and I can't take credit for any of that. They're people that love me and love our company and love our family and want to support what we're doing. I have wonderful people at Community Healthcare. Our team is so highly functioning and so healthy. We've instituted giant principles like we've talked about before. So they've all seen that we really do want what's best for each other. At home, my wife is a saint on earth. She manages 5 children and me, so that's like 6 kids. She does it with a smile on her face and a bounce in her step, and she looks beautiful the whole time she does it. So I can't, if I didn't have her, I wouldn't be able to do anything. My office in Louisville is amazing. We've been really intentional to build a great team there. Just love that they're just there for patients. Our patients love them. And as a team, I can't do any of that. None of us, if you're going to do value-based care, that's the other thing that's hard to train people in, is you can't do it yourself. Yeah. You have to have a team. We have amazingly high functioning, brilliant nurse practitioners, care managers, my office staff, my manager, and that's in every office at Community Healthcare. It really is. So yeah, there's no credit taking from me. I'm not the one doing all this. I like to do a lot of things, and I think I'm the one that sometimes makes it worse for everybody, because I'm the one coming in like a hurricane and blowing up their day because I'm behind schedule and stuff. So I think I'm the one that even holds them back sometimes.
Yeah, I think critical things you mentioned there are self-awareness, knowing your personality, what helps you thrive, and building team around you that's willing to collaborate in a lot of different areas. It's not just at work, but it's at home too. And having both spaces kind of coincide together is what's setting you up for success. And I love hearing that. The research all shows that too, as far as building collaborative teams and self-awareness towards really preventing burnout. And it's a systemic change. It's not just in isolation. So I appreciate you elaborating on all of that, because it's incredibly helpful.
And it's hard to get there because, we, especially in medical training, you're trained to do everything yourself. And that's the other thing we're trying to break with all of our providers. And again, with me personally, I feel like I've come a long way in being able to collaborate better with teams and not taking everything on myself. And, so yeah, it's always evolving. We're never at the finish line. It's always a journey.
Yeah, and I mean, I can hear like the pride and sense of responsibility you have in your voice, of like the self-responsibility of being your best self, so that you can show up in all of these other functions for other people. Going off of that, what is the legacy that you want to leave, family, life, career-wise?
Oh wow, you guys got deep on me here.
You didn't know the second time was going to be like this, huh?
No, we were talking about venture capital firms taking over healthcare. So no, for me, if I think of my life, if I think of what I want people to say about me at the end of my life, I think the first is, number one priority in my life is my relationship with Jesus. And, I think it's in Matthew when Paul says, it is in Matthew when Jesus says, the servant that was able to multiply what he was given and to give it back to the Lord. And he says, well done, good and faithful servant. If I can meet my maker and see Jesus and he says that to me, my life will have been a success. So that's my first priority. Whatever, if I'm blessed with anything, the goal is to multiply it and give it back to the Lord, not to keep it for myself but to give it to others. Number two, I hope that at the end of my life, my wife can say that I was a good husband and that I supported her relationship with Jesus and her growth as a person, and her ability to live the best life that she was supposed to live. Number three, I hope that my children can say that I was a loving father and that did the best I could for them. Every day I'm like, my gosh, I failed again as a parent today. I think it's so easy to get in that failure mindset as a parent, and I think my wife and I talk about just keep showing up every day. You're going to make mistakes, but keep showing up for your kids, and we do that. I try to coach every little league team I can. I'm at everything I can be at. And then number four, when you move into professional life, I hope that community healthcare is something totally different than it is now. Again, I'm partial and I'm biased, but the heart that we have to take care of people and the processes on the other side that we have in order to carry it out, I think is very unique and pretty successful. And so I would love for community healthcare to not just be changing healthcare in Northeast Ohio, but nationwide. And it's pretty cool with a national partner like Agilon and with other partnerships we're in. I think we have an opportunity to do that. Again, I want to do it strategically in a way that's not too fast, but in a way that can really help people get better care. And so I hope that, those are my priorities. And if I was able to do that, I think it'd be amazing. I don't know if it's a tall order, but I think if we don't strive for that kind of stuff, we don't have any chance of getting to it. So I hope someday, if that's my legacy, that would be great.
Yeah. That's like a mic drop moment right there. That's amazing.
You know what Stephen Covey says in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? He starts the whole book of imagine your funeral and picture what people were going to say about you. And that changed my life. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
What are they going to say about me? What do I want them to say? And what would they say right now versus what do I want them to say? So
because then like the flip side question of that is what would be the pain if you didn't achieve all of those 4 priorities?
Right. And that's what drives you, I think. If you don't think you're on track for any of those, then it's like, okay, I need to get my stuff together. So
Yeah. And it's, the awareness of today versus what you really want at the end kind of a thing. Yeah. The vision, you have such a strong vision, and that's been present from day one since I've met you. So it's cool to see it. And I think that it's nice to have a picture of what healthy teams can look like and where medicine can head. So we certainly appreciate your time.
No problem. Yeah, we had a couple conversations here at work the other day about, we're not perfect, but we're trying. And, working together and collaborating is messy. Emotions get involved. People's feelings are out there because they're trying. They're showing up every day trying to do their best, and misunderstandings happen. And, leadership is not easy. And, again, even like I said, with parenting, it happens at work too, is just keep showing up. We tell our people like, hey, just keep trying. We'll get there. We're not perfect. We're not claiming to be, but we hope that we can get better all the time. So.
Yeah. One of my favorite phrases is practice makes progress.
Yeah.
Not perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think whenever you're dealing in a people business, you have to expect messiness because people are emotional just by nature. And especially when it's in healthcare where we care so much. We care so deeply.
Do you see that a lot when you're training healthcare providers, that it's a little more emotionally charged than in other industries?
So healthcare and teachers. So teachers is the other, education is the other thing where outcomes for them of what they see in the kiddo or when they see in their patient of what they want or see that the team could be, it's heartbreaking for them to see sometimes that they're not there. But if you think about it in giant terms, there's a lot of nurturers, like nurture guardian nurturers in these fields because they care deeply about people on the day-to-day.
Gotcha.
So it is the people-pleasing tendencies, perfectionism that are really, really high in those populations of people and those personalities. So it's helping them realize that if it's even not this year that you're going to see a drastic change, you made an impact in that person somehow. And just keeping it in the present for them of you are making an impact, even if it's not the one you want or think you should be making.
Yeah. And I think that like ties into that saying where people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 3.
Yeah.
And if you think about it in those terms, like we all do, like, especially with growth, like we think we can be so far ahead and then we get into like perfectionism, like we didn't make it. But if we think in track of like 3-year time frames, it's a totally different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said that to our team the other day. It's funny you just said that because I meet with our care managers and they have the unenviable task of dealing with the sickest of the sick of our patients. And I think I was sensing a lot of burnout and a lot of dissatisfaction from them in the room just because I think you don't see those outcomes, right? These are chronic conditions and chronically ill people that aren't going to get better. And so they're not seeing the fruit of their labor. And I said, look, you can't tie your competence into those outcomes. But like you said, the process and the progress is where you can get some wins, but you're not going to get that huge win of I fixed something. You know, like it's sometimes I envy surgeons because they can see a problem, fix a problem, yay, and get some self-satisfaction from that. But if I just manage your blood pressure and it's still normal, okay, great.
It's true. And I mean, that's definitely the reasons why like my surgeons got into surgery. They were instant gratification people, which is also interesting because you were instant gratification, but you still spent like 12 to 15 years in school. There's nothing instant about that.
Not at all.
But I imagine too, on like the chronic care patients that don't get better right away, there's probably like a mental health aspect to managing their care that while it's not as tangible, I'm sure it improves that if they're managing it efficiently.
Yeah. And that's why we've tried to integrate behavioral health in our offices and our practices because, you know, we've found that just giving the medications, they might be the appropriate meds that are meant to help that condition. But if the patient's not on board or hasn't changed their lifestyle or is not in a good place mentally, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Very, very much.
Because you deal with a lot of Medicare, Medicaid patients, right?
Yes.
And so in the primary care section, do you find any issues with the chronic care management and the cost of prescription drugs?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I think that's actually the hill I think I want to try to die on next is pharmacy. You know, the example here recently for us is that we've had a couple of cardiologists come educate us on heart failure. And there's 4 real medication pillars that every heart failure patient should probably be on in order to increase their lifespan and decrease their hospitalization. And unfortunately, 2 of those 4 medications are newer, great medications. They're new. They've been developed for this problem. They're showing great outcomes, but because they're new, they're branded and they're expensive. And my Medicare patients can't afford any of them. And so back to the contract model, if we're at full risk, meaning that if all of those dollars are in me and Agilon's control anyway, then why are we charging the patient a copay? If those resources are coming from us, then if I want my patient to be on that, I'm paying for it anyway out of that allocation that Medicare gave us. Why can't I give my patient those medications? Yeah. So I think I've got a couple meetings coming up next week because I'm like some kind of common sense has to prevail here.
Yeah. And so that's actually like a really good point. Does the prescription pharmacy model like play into this value-based care? Has it yet?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of hasn't yet. And that's what I mean by that is that right now my patients still got to go pay whatever the copay is on their plan. And again, if the rest of that cost is coming out of a risk pool of money that I've already gotten access to manage their care, and I want them on that medication because it gives them these better outcomes, then why can't we pay for that?
Right.
The bureaucracy again and how many layers and how many rules there are is still prohibitive. And so it's like, man, like I got to figure out somebody somewhere that can help us with that.
Yeah, because like also the translation, because I work with a lot of surgeons, is similar on a surgery side. Like if they deal with denials, same with you all of the time. So if you know something has a better outcome and you can justify it, especially on a data end, then that actually could be so much better on a value-based care model.
When I think we have an opportunity in Medicare, in the Medicare space, to do it, because they don't jump plans all the time. So the problem with getting a commercial payer to pay for a 30-year-old to be on something preventative or long-term like that is that the patient changes insurance so much that that plan doesn't get to see the benefit years later. But in Medicare, most people are there for the duration of their life. And so the investment by the insurance company up front to do that for a patient actually does show the benefit. So that's the other thing, is it's a different timeline. It's a different model.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Like in general, do you see other issues on a value-based care on a commercial care model?
Well, it's interesting. I think the next frontier, we've done well in Medicare right now, but the next frontier is going to be going direct to employer, I think. Mm-hmm. So what is the number one cost for any large employer? Is healthcare for their employees. And it's going up, 10 to 20% a year? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we can, through figuring out the data, go to a large employer and say, hey, we'll take care of your 5,000 employees and their families exclusively at community healthcare or in whatever entity and joint venture we're in, for X amount of dollars per patient per month. And that's it. If we go over that, that's on us. So we're at risk for that.
Yeah.
And if we go under it, again, just like with Medicare, we can keep the savings and use it to reinvest in our care for you. That's the end game, because that's where, like, all of a sudden you change communities, because I grew up in a blue collar steelworker family on one income. My parents worked their butts off for us. I was the first one to go to college. And so I have a huge heart for how do I help steel mills and teachers unions and the police department spend less on healthcare, because it helps those families. It helps them hire more. It helps them get people raises. That's where you can really change communities, I think. And there's already, Agilon's founder is already looking at different companies to do that in the employer and commercial space. It's already here in our market. I think we need to get there. But that's where value can be really put on steroids as well.
Yeah, and the direct-to-employer model, I actually was just chatting with a CEO of what started as an IO&M company, neuromonitoring, and they realized very fast, because that's a fee-for-service and it's an out-of-network fee-for-service. And they realized really fast, if they want to play in this space and help their surgeons, they've got to figure it out. So they're based out of Texas and essentially did that. They built a value-based MSK all into direct to employer, because now they can control the neuromonitoring. They're starting to control the hardware so that those costs are substantially down, and essentially building out that model.
Right. And if you can do that, like I said, it is a game changer, because if you can stabilize a company's healthcare expenditures, it changes their business as well.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see what can happen, and starting even with Medicare and primary care, and just having these conversations of what's possible and then building it out into employer stages. I think that's really exciting for what healthcare could become.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing is too in healthcare is for the individuals doing it to talk about it more. And because usually healthcare is siloed, especially on a hospital end, where I feel like that's always been one of the downfalls of healthcare. It's other businesses, you're shouting it from the rooftop, you're doing things and all of this, that healthcare is a little bit slower to broadcast and collaboratively share all of that information.
It is. And I think, there's a lot of different reasons for that. We were able to hire a doctor who had been working for a large hospital system right in our market, right in our neighborhood. And after starting to work for us and learning our model, he was like, you know what, I think it's crazy that I've been working here for 10 years and I didn't even know this model existed in our market, let alone that you were here. And I said, yeah, that's to your point. there's not a lot of ways for us to communicate if there's all those silos up, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think healthcare improves that?
I don't know. I think what's hard is value-based care is helpful for certain types of providers and it's threatening to other types. And think about large hospital systems. Their business model is to have people in the hospital. And my business model is to keep people out of the hospital. Right. And so there's a tug of war. Yeah. And so for me to, and here's the thing, I want those hospitals to be partners with me, not competitors.
Yeah.
Because I need them. My patients need to go to the hospital. They need surgeries. They need care. If they get sick, they need to go there. I want to have great relationships with those hospitals so I can collaborate for our patients. But so for me to trumpet from the rooftops to all of their doctors, hey, my model's great. Come do it. You don't have to see 30 patients a day. You're capitated. We have nurses to help you. Like, I don't want to go in and do that. Now, do we get to that? I don't know. But those relationships are valuable. I don't want to trample those. I think no one does. The hospitals need and want to work with us. And so you're right. It's kind of like this, how much can I do? How much can I do? Yeah.
I think just conversations in general are just necessary to be had. Like Jess said, just the ability to talk about what's happening in a different environment, I think is just necessary too, just for awareness. Because those little seeds that you're planting for resistant people, this is always the way it's been done. We can't change it. It plants something in their brain of like, well, maybe it's possible, or why isn't it possible for me? I just think talking about it sometimes is the best way to start planting seeds for change.
Yeah.
So,
and I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think awareness too, because like even shouting it from the rooftop to hospitals, okay. But if more just consumers knew about all of these successful models and they didn't have access to it, that almost creates a natural demand.
That's amazing, because you're right. It isn't just talking about it healthcare provider to provider, but it's awareness from a patient standpoint.
Yeah. It's like other businesses. It's storytelling marketing and storytelling, like capturing and all of that.
It's pretty regular practice in community healthcare for new patients. After a few months, like they have their first visit, whatever, it's fine. We do our thing. But that first like episode where they're sick and they call in and someone goes to their house from our practice, or they get admitted to the hospital and one of our hospital-based nurses tells them, hey, Dr. Steineck knows you're here. Here's my card. We're going to follow up. Like that extra care that we can give that the regular doc on the corner without these resources can't give. We get that like, holy crap, this is different kind of thing from our patients. And we like this. So but you're right. Right now, it's just because they experienced it, not because they sought it out.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was there. So I think, and that's the hard part too, is trying to, again, with our growth, we're bursting at the seams with how many patients we have. It's being able to grow big enough to service our community, again, with the right people and the right docs that are doing that. And so that's the big tug of war that we're playing with growth as well.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that because Becky also said that you had like 70 like physicians that you attracted on a hiring end. Or around there?
I think she. Yeah.
Oh, 7. Okay, I heard 70. I was gonna be like, "Wow, that's amazing for Ohio."
No, but even 7 for us was a lot because we can't recruit based on geography, so people aren't coming to my practice because we're on a beach. Or, it's 28 degrees out right now. But for us to have hired, I believe it's 7 doctors now in the last year and a half, is unprecedented for us. And it's just because I think this model is attractive. And you're right, storytelling. It's getting down and hearing me talk about it and hearing our other, I'm the CEO. I'm supposed to be the mouthpiece of it. But when other docs that are on the ground in our offices are helping me recruit and they can tell a new recruit like, hey, like, what he's saying is really happening here.
Yeah.
My day has changed because I don't have to see 35 patients anymore.
Yeah.
And I have help. I've got a team. It's not perfect. We have days, we all do, but overall the model is working. And so, it's really been a great recruiting tool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brady.
I was going to say, so we are well
we
over
are like
time.
way over time.
Like, wait, didn't we want to cut it? But this was great.
No, it was good. And
Yeah.
the back end was very animated, where maybe we'll just start our own unscripted version, Becky, and cut it in half.
I was thinking, I'm like, all those times that I had these monologues, we should cut that and just do this conversation.
Yeah.
But real quick, just to wrap up, Becky, what you said about having the conversation, that's why I love what you guys are doing with this podcast, because it sounds like you're having a lot of people on that are doing things differently. And the more listeners you get, this could be another platform of people figuring out that things are changing. So keep it up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Pulse.
Thanks for having me.